Hello, my dear friend. This is a channel filled with tales straight from the future, and we have a large collection of stories for children in audio format. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new stories.
Zip, Cyber Guardian of the Neon Garden. Part 1, The Arrival of Zip. In the bustling neon district of Neo Tokyo, where holographic trees lined the streets and hover cars zipped through the air, there lived a family in a sleek, modern apartment. The Andersons, mom, dad, and their young son Max, were new to the area, still adjusting to the dazzling lights and constant hum of technology. One stormy night, as rain pelted against the force field windows, a small, furry creature was swept away from its family by a sudden surge of water in the city's underground tunnels. This little animal, a cyber-mongoose named Zip, tumbled through the neon-lit drainage systems, his tiny paws scrambling for purchase on the slick, glowing surfaces. As luck would have it, Zip was washed out of a vent right onto the Andersons' balcony garden. Max, who had been watching the storm through the window, spotted the small, bedraggled creature. "Mom, Dad, come quick," he called out excitedly. The Andersons rushed to see what Max had found. There, shivering and sparking slightly, was Zip. His fur was a mix of soft gray and metallic silver, with glowing blue lines running along his sides. His eyes, big and curious, glowed a soft green. "Oh, the poor little thing," Mom said, gently picking up Zip. "Let's bring him inside and dry him off." Dad looked a bit unsure. "I've never seen a cyber pet like this before. Are you sure it's safe?" But as soon as Zip was wrapped in a soft towel, he perked up. His whiskers twitched, and his tail, ending in a small antenna, began to wag. He looked around the apartment with wonder, his green eyes taking in every detail. Max was thrilled. "Can we keep him, please?" he begged his parents. Before they could answer, Zip had already wiggled out of the towel and was exploring the apartment. He scampered across the hollow floor, leaving tiny paw prints of light. He sniffed at the food synthesizer in the kitchen and playfully batted at the floating holographic plants. The Andersons couldn't help but laugh at Zip's antics. Even Dad had to admit, he sure is a lively little fellow. As Zip continued his exploration, none of the Andersons realized that their new friend was about to change their lives in ways they could never have imagined. The cyber-mongoose's arrival was just the beginning of an adventure that would shake up their entire digital world. Part 2, The Cyber Garden's Secret. The next morning, Zip woke up curled next to Max. Eager to explore more, he scampered out to the balcony garden. This wasn't just any garden. It was a marvel of technology and nature combined. Holographic flowers bloomed alongside real plants, and tiny maintenance drones buzzed around like bees. As Zip ventured further, he met some of the garden's inhabitants. A sleek, metallic bird called Chirp fluttered down from a digital tree branch. "Welcome, newcomer," Chirp sang in a melodious, slightly electronic voice. "It's nice to see a friendly face around here." From behind a glowing mushroom, a timid voice spoke up. "Be careful, little one." A nervous-looking cyber muskrat named Whiskers peeked out. His fur was a mix of soft brown and copper wires. "This garden isn't as safe as it looks." Zip tilted his head curiously. "What do you mean?" he asked. Chirp and Whiskers exchanged worried glances. "Well," Chirp began, "there's a pair of cyber-cobras who think they own this place. They're not too happy about the humans living here." Just then, a low, menacing hiss filled the air. Zip's fur stood on end as he turned to see a massive cyber-cobra slithering out from behind a holographic rock. The cobra's scales were a mix of dark metal and pulsing neon lights, and its eyes glowed an eerie red. "Who dares trespass in my domain?" the cobra demanded, its voice a chilling mix of hiss and static. Whiskers quickly hid, but Zip stood his ground. Despite being much smaller, the cyber-mongoose didn't back down. His green eyes met the cobra's red ones without flinching. "I'm Zip," he said boldly. "I live here now with my new family." The cobra's hood expanded, revealing intricate circuitry patterns. "I am Venom," it declared. "My mate Toxin and I ruled this garden long before these humans arrived. We will not tolerate any more intruders." As Venom's words sank in, Zip realized the danger wasn't just to him, but to Max and his family too. He knew then that he had to protect them, no matter what. "This garden is big enough for all of us," Zip said firmly. "There's no need for anyone to leave." Venom's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that, little one," he hissed before slithering away into the shadows of the cyber plants. As Zip watched Venom disappear, he felt a mix of fear and determination. He had found a new home and family, and he wasn't about to let anyone threaten that. Little did he know, his bravery was about to be put to the ultimate test. Part 3: The Cyber Showdown. As night fell over Neo-Tokyo, the balcony garden transformed. Bioluminescent plants glowed softly, and holographic fireflies danced in the air. Zip was curled up near Max's bed when his sensitive ears picked up a faint conversation from the garden. Creeping silently to the balcony, Zip overheard Venom and Toxin, the cyber-cobra couple, plotting in hushed, static-filled whispers. "Tomorrow," Venom hissed, "we'll strike at the boy. Once he's gone, the humans will leave, and the garden will be ours again." Toxin's metallic scales clinked softly as she nodded. "Yes, my love, our reign will continue." Zip's green eyes widened in horror. He couldn't let them hurt Max or his family. Determined to protect his new home, Zip decided to confront Venom right then and there. Leaping from his hiding spot, Zip called out, "Stop right there, Venom. I won't let you harm anyone." Venom's red eyes glowed menacingly in the dark. "Foolish little mongoose," he sneered. "You dare challenge me?" What followed was an intense battle. Venom lunged at Zip, his fangs gleaming with a neon blue venom. But Zip was quicker. He dodged and weaved, his small size and agility giving him an advantage in the cluttered garden. Zip's paws left trails of light as he darted around, confusing Venom. The cyber-mongoose's tail antenna crackled with energy as he fought back, delivering quick, sharp bites to Venom's metallic scales. The commotion woke up the Andersons. Dad rushed to the balcony, his eyes widening at the scene before him. Without hesitation, he grabbed a nearby drone controller. As Venom reared up for a final strike at Zip, Dad activated the garden's maintenance drones. The small robots swarmed Venom, their lasers cutting through the cobra's circuitry. With a final, static-filled hiss, Venom's system shut down. The threat was neutralized. Panting and sparking slightly, Zip looked up at Dad gratefully. The Andersons gathered around, amazed at their small pet's bravery. "You saved us, Zip," Max said, scooping up the tired cyber-mongoose. But as the family celebrated their narrow escape, none of them noticed Toxin watching from the shadows, her eyes burning with rage and grief. The battle was over, but the war had just begun. Part 4: The Garden's New Guardian. In the days following Venom's defeat, the cyber garden buzzed with a mix of relief and tension. The holographic flowers seemed to bloom brighter, and the real plants stood taller, as if sensing the shift in power. But beneath this facade of peace, a current of unease ran through the digital soil. Zip, now hailed as a hero by the garden's inhabitants, took his new role as protector seriously. He patrolled the balcony tirelessly, his green eyes scanning for any sign of danger. His tail antenna was always twitching, picking up signals and vibrations from around the garden. Chirp, the metallic bird, often flew alongside Zip during his rounds. "You've given us hope," she chirped, her wings leaving trails of pixelated light. "But be careful, Toxin is more dangerous than ever." Whiskers, the cyber muskrat, emerged more often from his hiding spots to share information. "I've seen Toxin," he whispered one day, his whiskers trembling. "She's changed. Her eyes, they're different now, colder." Indeed, Toxin had transformed in her grief and rage. Her once shimmering scales now pulsed with an angry red light, and her movements were erratic and unpredictable. She was rarely seen, but her presence was felt everywhere in the garden. Meanwhile, the Anderson family's affection for Zip grew stronger each day. Mom would smile as she watched Zip chase holographic butterflies, his playful antics bringing laughter to their home. Dad, impressed by Zip's bravery, started to upgrade the garden's security systems, often consulting with Zip as if the cyber-mongoose understood every word. But it was Max who formed the strongest bond with Zip. The boy and his cyber pet were inseparable. Max would read stories to Zip from his holo tablet, and Zip would curl up on Max's lap during virtual school lessons, his soft purring a comforting presence. One evening, as Max was getting ready for bed, he hugged Zip tightly. "You're my best friend, Zip," he said softly. "I'm so glad you found us." Unbeknownst to them, Toxin was watching this tender moment from the shadows of the garden. Her red eyes narrowed, focusing on Max. In that instant, her plan for revenge crystallized. She wouldn't just drive the humans away, she would strike at the heart of their happiness. She would target Max. As Toxin slithered away, plotting her revenge, Zip's ears perked up. He sensed something was wrong, but couldn't pinpoint what. Snuggling closer to Max, Zip silently renewed his vow to protect his new family, unaware of the terrible danger that was now aimed directly at the boy he loved. Part 5, The Midnight Intruder. As the neon lights of Neo Tokyo dimmed for the night cycle, the Anderson family settled into their evening routine. Max was tucked into bed, his hollow nightlight casting a soft blue glow around the room. Zip curled up at the foot of the bed, his sensors on high alert even as he dozed. In the garden, Chirp's evening song faded as she settled into her nest of fiber optics. Whiskers scurried about, his nocturnal habits kicking in. Suddenly, both froze. A sinister presence slithered through the shadows, its scales glinting with malevolent red light. Toxin had made her move. Chirp let out a sharp, alarm-like trill while Whiskers scampered to Zip, his paws pattering an urgent rhythm on the smart glass door. "Zip, wake up! She's coming!" Zip's eyes snapped open, glowing green in the darkness. He leapt from the bed just as Toxin's sleek form slipped through a small gap in the balcony door's force field. The cyber-cobra's eyes locked onto Max's sleeping form. "Yes," she hissed, her voice crackling with static and malice. "The boy will pay for what happened to my venom." "Not if I can help it," Zip declared, positioning himself between Toxin and Max's bed. Toxin reared up, her hood expanding to reveal pulsing circuitry. Zip's fur bristled, his tail antenna sparking with defensive energy. They faced off in the dim light of the room, neither willing to back down. The commotion woke Max. "Zip," he mumbled sleepily, then gasped as he saw the standoff. "Max, run!" Zip cried out, never taking his eyes off Toxin. The boy scrambled out of bed, calling for his parents. Toxin lunged, but Zip was quicker. He darted in, nipping at her scales, drawing her attention away from Max. Mom and Dad burst into the room, their faces pale with shock at the scene before them. Dad reached for the nearest weapon, a hologame controller, while Mom ushered Max behind her. Toxin, realizing she was outnumbered, began to retreat. But Zip wasn't about to let her escape to threaten his family again. With a burst of speed, he herded her towards the balcony, his small form a blur of silver and blue light. In a final desperate move, Toxin struck at Zip. But the clever mongoose had anticipated this. He dodged, causing Toxin to overshoot and tumble over the balcony railing. She managed to catch herself on a ledge below, glaring up with hatred before slithering away into the neon-lit night. As the danger passed, the family gathered around Zip, their faces a mix of awe and gratitude. Max hugged his cyber pet tightly. "You saved us, Zip. You're not just my pet, you're our guardian." Dad nodded solemnly. "He's right. Zip, you're a true hero." Zip stood tall, his chest puffing out with pride. He was no longer just a rescued stray or a family pet. He had become the Anderson family's protector, their cyber guardian in this bustling, dangerous world of Neo Tokyo. And he was determined to keep them safe, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Part 6, The Nest of Neon Eggs. The day after Toxin's attack, Zip knew he couldn't wait for the next strike. He had to take action. As the Anderson family went about their morning routine, Zip slipped out to the balcony garden, determination glowing in his green eyes. "Chirp, Whiskers," he called softly. His friends quickly appeared, sensing the urgency in his voice. "We need to find Toxin's nest," Zip explained. "She'll keep coming back unless we stop her for good." Chirp fluttered nervously. "I've seen her slithering towards the old data core at the far end of the garden. It's dark and full of tangled wires, perfect for a cobra's nest." Whiskers nodded, his whiskers twitching. "I can guide you there, but it's dangerous, Zip." Zip stood tall, his fur shimmering with determination. "I have to try, for Max and the others." The trio made their way through the garden, past holographic plants and glowing flowers. They reached a neglected corner where an old, abandoned data core sat, its casing cracked and overgrown with digital vines. "This is it," Whiskers whispered, his voice trembling. "Good luck, Zip." Zip nodded gratefully to his friends before cautiously entering the dark recess of the data core. Inside, the air hummed with latent electricity. As his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he gasped. There, nestled in a tangle of wires and circuitry, lay a clutch of eggs. But these were no ordinary eggs. They pulsed with a soft neon glow, each one a potential cyber-cobra. Zip's mind raced. These eggs posed a terrible threat, If they hatched, the garden would be overrun with hostile cyber-cobras. But as he looked at them, a plan formed in his quick mind. With careful precision, Zip began to dismantle the nest. One by one, he deactivated the eggs, their neon glow fading as he severed their power connections. But he left one egg intact, its soft light still pulsing in the darkness. As Zip worked, he heard a furious hiss behind him. Toxin had returned. "You miserable rodent," she screeched, her eyes blazing with fury as she saw her destroyed nest. Zip darted past her, leading her on a chase through the garden. He knew he had dealt a significant blow to Toxin's plans, but he had also pushed her to a new level of hatred. As he finally lost her in a maze of holographic shrubs, Zip caught his breath. He had won this round, but the real battle was far from over. Toxin's rage would know no bounds now, and Zip knew he had to be ready for whatever she might do next. Back in the safety of the Andersons' apartment, Zip curled up next to Max, his mind whirling with plans and strategies. He had taken a bold step today, but the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The final confrontation with Toxin was coming, and Zip was determined to be ready. Part 7, The Calm Before the Storm. In the days following Zip's raid on Toxin's nest, an eerie calm settled over the cyber garden. But it was a deceptive peace, like the quiet before a digital thunderstorm. Every inhabitant of the garden, from the tiniest nanobug to the tallest hollow tree, seemed to hold its breath in anticipation of the coming conflict. Zip spent his time training, honing his reflexes and agility. He darted between holographic obstacles, practiced his defensive moves, and worked on increasing the power of his energy discharges. Max watched in awe as his cyber pet transformed into a skilled warrior before his eyes. "You're amazing, Zip," Max said one evening, gently petting Zip's shimmering fur. "But I'm scared for you. What if Toxin hurts you?" Zip nuzzled Max's hand reassuringly. "Don't worry, Max. I'll always protect you and our family." Meanwhile, Chirp and her flock kept a constant aerial surveillance of the garden. One morning, she flew down to Zip with urgent news. "Toxin's on the move," Chirp reported, her metallic feathers ruffling with anxiety. "She's gathering power from the old data cores. Her energy signature is off the charts." Whiskers, who had been monitoring the garden's underground network, added his own worrying information. "She's reconfigured the entire system at the far end of the garden. It's like a fortress now, filled with traps and defenses." Zip nodded gravely. "Then that's where the final battle will be, on her turf." The Anderson family, now fully aware of the danger lurking in their garden, became increasingly protective of Zip. Dad installed additional security measures, including a personal force field generator for Zip. Mom prepared special energy-rich meals to keep Zip's power levels at their peak. One night, as the family sat together in the living room, the air thick with unspoken worry, Dad cleared his throat. "Zip," he said solemnly, "we want you to know how much you mean to us. You're not just a pet, you're family. And we're afraid of losing you." Zip looked at each of their concerned faces, feeling a surge of love and determination. He knew then that he would do whatever it took to keep them safe, even if it meant facing Toxin in the heart of her digital lair. As the final confrontation drew near, Zip made a daring decision. He would take the fight to Toxin, entering her fortified territory. It was a risky move, but Zip knew it was the only way to end this threat once and for all. On the eve of the battle, as Neo-Tokyo's neon lights painted the night sky, Zip stood on the balcony, looking out at the garden that had become his home and battlefield. Behind him, the Anderson family slept, unaware that their brave guardian was about to face his greatest challenge. Zip's green eyes glowed with resolve. Tomorrow, he would face Toxin in her lair. Tomorrow, the fate of his family and the entire cyber garden would be decided. And Zip was ready, no matter what the cost. Part 8, The Digital Duel. As the first light of Neo-Tokyo's artificial dawn broke over the cyber garden, Zip steeled himself for the battle ahead. With a final glance at the sleeping Anderson family, he slipped out into the garden, his fur shimmering with determination. The garden was unnaturally quiet. Even the usual hum of electricity seemed muted. Zip made his way to the far end, where Toxin had fortified her territory. As he approached, the air crackled with malevolent energy. Suddenly, Toxin's voice, distorted and filled with static, echoed through the garden. "So the little hero comes to meet his doom," she hissed. "Enter if you dare." Zip took a deep breath and plunged into Toxin's lair. Immediately, he was assaulted by a dizzying array of holographic projections and energy fields. Toxin had turned her domain into a labyrinth of digital traps and illusions. Navigating through the chaos, Zip finally came face to face with Toxin. The cyber-cobra was a terrifying sight. Her scales pulsed with angry red light and her eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity. "This ends now, Toxin," Zip declared, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Toxin's laugh was a chilling mix of hiss and electronic feedback. "Oh, it will end, little one, but not for me." The battle that ensued was unlike anything the cyber garden had ever seen. Toxin lunged at Zip, her fangs crackling with lethal voltage. Zip dodged and weaved, using his smaller size and quicker reflexes to evade her strikes. Zip counterattacked with bursts of energy from his tail antenna, each blast leaving scorch marks on Toxin's metallic scales. But the cyber-cobra was relentless, her rage fueling her attacks. As the fight raged on, Toxin managed to corner Zip near the entrance to her burrow. With a triumphant hiss, she struck, expecting to end the battle. But Zip had anticipated this move. At the last second, he ducked and rolled, causing Toxin to overshoot and plunge into her own burrow. Without hesitation, Zip followed her in. The burrow was a tight, twisting tunnel of wires and circuitry. Here, Toxin's size worked against her. She struggled to maneuver in the confined space, while Zip darted around with ease. In the darkness of the burrow, their battle took on a new intensity. Flashes of energy lit up the tunnel as they clashed. Zip could feel the heat of Toxin's attacks singeing his fur, but he pressed on, determined to end this threat once and for all. As they fought deeper into the burrow, the outcome became increasingly uncertain. The darkness and confined space made it hard to tell who had the upper hand. Zip's smaller size was an advantage, but Toxin's raw power and desperation made her incredibly dangerous. In the heart of the digital underworld, surrounded by the pulsing core of the cyber garden systems, Zip and Toxin faced off for their final exchange. The fate of the garden, the Anderson family, and Zip himself hung in the balance as the two combatants prepared for their decisive clash. Part 9, The Hero's Return. As the sun rose over Neo-Tokyo, casting its light on the cyber garden, an eerie silence hung in the air. The inhabitants of the garden waited with bated breath, their digital hearts pulsing with anxiety. Suddenly, a small figure emerged from the tangled mess of wires and circuits at the far end of the garden. It was Zip, his fur singed and sparking, but his green eyes glowing with triumph. In his mouth, he carried a small deactivated circuit board, all that remained of the once fearsome Toxin. A moment of stunned silence passed before the garden erupted in jubilation. Chirp and her flock took to the air, their metallic wings creating a dazzling light show as they swooped and soared, singing Zip's praises in a symphony of beeps and trills. "Zip did it! Zip did it!" Chirp sang, her voice carrying across the garden. "Our hero has saved us all." Whiskers and the other small creatures of the garden emerged from their hiding spots, their eyes wide with wonder and relief. They gathered around Zip, chattering excitedly and offering their thanks. The commotion woke the Anderson family. They rushed to the balcony, their faces a mix of concern and hope. When they saw Zip, standing tall amidst the celebrating garden creatures, their worry turned to joy. Max was the first to reach Zip, scooping him up in a gentle hug. "You did it, Zip. You're okay," he exclaimed, happy tears glistening in his eyes. Mom and Dad joined them, their faces beaming with pride and relief. "You've saved us all, little one," Dad said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're not just a pet, you're a true hero." Mom nodded in agreement, gently stroking Zip's fur. "And more than that, your family, our brave, wonderful Zip." As the day wore on, the celebration continued. The garden, freed from Toxin's malevolent presence, seemed to come alive with new vigor. The holographic plants glowed brighter, the real flowers bloomed more vibrantly, and even the maintenance drones buzzed with renewed energy. Zip, exhausted but content, basked in the love of his family and the adoration of the garden inhabitants. He had faced his greatest challenge and emerged victorious, not just saving his loved ones, but an entire digital ecosystem. As night fell and the neon lights of Neo-Tokyo painted the sky, a new peace settled over the cyber garden. But it was more than just the absence of threat. There was a shift in the very fabric of the garden's society. The creatures looked to Zip now, not with fear or suspicion, but with respect and admiration. Zip had become more than a hero. He was now the guardian of the garden, a protector who had earned his place through courage and sacrifice. As he curled up with Max that night, Zip knew that while the battle was over, his role as the garden's defender was just beginning. But with his family by his side and his newfound friends supporting him, Zip was ready for whatever challenges the future might bring. Part 10. The Guardian of the Cyber Garden. In the weeks that followed Zip's victory over Toxin, life in the Anderson family's cyber garden settled into a new rhythm. The neon-lit nights and holographic days passed peacefully, but beneath the tranquil surface, a new order had taken root. Zip, once a lost and bedraggled stray, had become the heart of this digital ecosystem. Each morning, he would make his rounds, his green eyes alert for any signs of trouble. The maintenance drones, now programmed to recognize him as an ally, would beep cheerfully as he passed. The Anderson family's life had returned to normal, but with a deeper appreciation for their small, heroic companion. Max would often sit in the garden, doing his virtual homework, while Zip kept watch nearby. Mom found herself leaving out extra energy treats for Zip, a small gesture of gratitude for their protector. Dad had even started consulting Zip when upgrading the apartment's security systems, as if the cyber-mongoose understood every word. One sunny afternoon, as Zip basked in a patch of sunlight on the balcony, Chirp and her flock gathered on the nearby hollow tree. With a flutter of metallic wings, they began to sing. It wasn't their usual chirping, but a melodious, electronic tune that carried across the entire garden. "Listen," Whiskers said, poking his head out from a cluster of glowing mushrooms. "They're singing the song of Zip." The song told the tale of a brave little mongoose who came from nowhere and saved them all. It spoke of his courage, his kindness, and his unwavering dedication to protecting his new home. As the birds sang, other garden inhabitants joined in. The buzzing of drones, the rustling of holographic leaves, even the soft hum of the force field, all became part of this digital symphony. The Andersons, drawn by the unusual melody, came out to listen. Max's eyes shone with pride as he realized the song was about his best friend. "You're a legend now, Zip," he said, scratching behind Zip's ears. Zip purred contentedly, but his eyes remained vigilant, scanning the garden. He knew that while Toxin was gone, other dangers might one day threaten his home. But he was ready. This garden, this family, they were his to protect. As the song reached its crescendo, a shimmer passed through the garden. It was as if the very code that made up this digital world had recognized Zip as its guardian. The once outsider was now the keystone of this delicate balance between nature and technology. That night, as Neo-Tokyo's neon skyline glowed in the distance, Zip curled up next to Max, his fur gently pulsing with a soft, reassuring light. The cyber garden was at peace, its inhabitants safe under the watchful eye of their unexpected hero. And so the tale of Zip, the cyber-mongoose, became a beloved story in Neo-Tokyo, a reminder that sometimes the smallest among us can make the biggest difference, and that courage, kindness, and loyalty can flourish even in the most unlikely places. As Max drifted off to sleep, he whispered, "Good night, Zip. Thank you for being our hero." Zip's green eyes glowed softly in the dark, ever watchful, ever ready. The guardian of the cyber garden had found his true home, and he would protect it now and always.
Until next time, my dear friend, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new stories.